How's it going, everyone? We are here for week 2 streamers and waiver wire ads. Jason Gilbalt did our fantasy football cafe article for us, so we're going to be checking out who the hot waiver wire ads in your redraft and season long leagues are going to be. Fairly interesting group here. I think there's a lot of people are going to have on their mind, and then maybe a few that really surprised that might not even be on everyone's mind yet. So I'm excited. Yeah? Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited. Are you
good.
excited, Jason? Yeah.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Let's keep talking in high-pitched voices. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, first one here. I mean, looking at waiver wire ads, I think Tajay Sharp is going to be the popular ones that you're going to be rushing to whenever the waiver wire opens up. I'm definitely going to be forking out some cash if you're in one of those type of waiver wire deals to get him. Saw 11 targets against Minnesota, obviously a tough matchup. And I think a 7 catch for 76-yard line is very encouraging against that secondary. I think he's going to be a solid guy at a wide receiver 3 spot that's going to be heavily used by Mariota in that offense. And he's about 50% in ESPN, a little all over the place in CBS and Yahoo. So I think if you're in a league that doesn't have him already, scoop him up.
And for those of you that don't follow me on Twitter or haven't followed me in the past, then no, I am not a fan of anyone drafted outside the 3rd round until they prove it to me. And Tajay Sharp, 5th rounder, out of UMass. I wasn't really high on him coming out. Didn't really have the athletic profile I was looking for. But I'll tell you what, training camp, really passed everyone in the Titans, wide receiver depth chart. And in preseason, he performed really well. And he got named the starter. And week 1 was, the main target in the offense. And it's like he just keeps chipping away and making these positive indicators. And after a while, kind of like Allen Hurns last year and the year before, it's like when someone proves it to you, they proved it to you. So certainly viable in redraft. I think he's going to be there even when Kendall Wright, comes back and is healthy. He's going to be a part of this offense this year. And if you like Mariota, even a little bit, I think Sharp's certainly a guy to add to the end of your bench. I mean, unless you're in like an 8-team league, but he should still be on your radar.
Yeah, definitely. And Will Fuller is another one you can toss out if you're looking for another wide receiver. He was about 50-50 in terms of being drafted in most of my leagues or not being drafted. Obviously, was kind of an Osweiler target there for game 1. He's going to be boomer bust, I still think, on a week-to-week basis, but he definitely has that upside.
Your boy. Who's your other running back here that I'm excited for you to talk about?
Oh, Tevin Coleman. I mean, he was a guy, obviously, Devonta Freeman was kind of the hot target in terms of drafting. It's still going to be a situation that is relatively split, I think. And obviously there has been talks about riding the hot hand. We saw that in week 1. Freeman saw 55% of the snaps to Coleman's 49%, but obviously Coleman was the more efficient back. And here's the thing. I mean, you take Coleman and maybe Freeman still does carry a lot of the workload and goes off, but what risk do you really have at this point to just grab him off the waiver wire and hope that this production kind of stays fairly similar? Every 2 to 3 weeks, you get something here, or 2 out of 3 weeks is what you're looking at for Coleman, because it's not going to be as consistent as we want. But I do think there's a lot of upside. I think there's a lot of maybe a decent floor. I think if all goes best.
Certainly. And as far as streaming options, I think we got quite a few options here. Those are really the 2 I think you should worry about in terms of blind bid money and, adding quickly. But there were a few other guys here that actually had really interesting week 1s. I'll have you highlight the 2 I like the most, and then you can go into the rest. But Marcus Mariota versus the Lions, I'm very intrigued by that play.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like Mariota and going up against this Lions defense. Obviously, the Colts passing attack much different from Tennessee and what we saw, but Mariota gives, a decent floor with your rushing attack. Talking about a couple of guys like Walker and Sharp. I like the offense and kind of where it's heading. They're going to have to put up points That's my main thing. They're not going to be able to go in. It's not going to be a low-scoring game. It's not going to be like how the Vikings played out. They're still going to have to go on the road and put up points. I think Mariota's going to do that. And he's not highly owned, which I was kind of a little bit surprised. I thought he was at least a decent backup.
Certainly agree. A lot of QBs to go around, but Mariota's really the one on the waiver wire that has real upside and could be a guy you end up holding on to. Eric Ebron is the other guy that I love. I loved him during, the offseason, and then he got hurt and my dreams got crushed. So what do you like about him this week?
I mean, I like Ebron. You and we both liked him kind of before the season started. You look at the Titans. I mean, they allowed the 7th most fantasy points per game to tight ends in 2015. Rudolph actually had a decent game against them in week 1, and he's not really. I don't really compare him to Ebron. I think Ebron's a little bit more athletic and mobile, moving down the field. Got 5 targets. I don't think he's going to get anything substantial in terms of targets. I think 5 to 7 is where he's going to sit on a week-to-week basis. Going to be a target in the red zone at 6'4". I like him quite a bit in this game because, once again, I still think the Lions' offense is just going to be really pass heavy.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. So in terms of the other guys, Justin Forsett, you mentioned him here. What do you think about that matchup?
Running back is a little tricky this week. Obviously, Tevin Coleman would be your immediate grab and plug and play. But if he's not there and you're just looking to strictly stream, obviously the Baltimore backfield is not pretty. But you're looking at a Cleveland defense that's not that good. You obviously look at Forsett, who was used heavily against Cleveland last year. You expect Baltimore to be up quite a bit here and kind of just move around and kind of being up and kind of sets up a decent game flow for Forsett. So, while obviously it's still going to be relatively split, I still think he gets around 15 attempts. I still think he gets a couple targets out of the backfield. And against this defense, I actually think he could be somewhat viable.
Well, I think Forsett always knew he was coming back. It was a wild week or wild month for like his perception. It was like, whoa, and okay, back to normal. Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
Nelson Aguilar mentioned here, obviously coming off the touchdown pass. Hey, you know what? All right, let's Carson Wentz, fantasy stud, right?
I like him because Zach Ertz has gone down. That's my biggest thing for it's just going to be solely a week 2 play. I'm not really looking at him going forward as an option. Well, as long as Ertz is out, maybe I'll take a look at him. But obviously going up against the Chicago secondary that's really banged up. Wentz did look promising in his debut. Chicago obviously failed to hold Will Fuller, who's the Houston wide receiver 2 there in week 1. I like him as just kind of a sneaky guy. Obviously, I do like Travis Benjamin, Cole Beasley. We just talked about Cole Beasley on another podcast, is kind of being that PPR dink and dunk guy that you can maybe rely on in a streaming option this week because Josh Norman is going to take away Des Bryant. Witten and Cole Beasley are probably going to be a lot of check down options. So I like Aguilar is just kind of a strictly week 2 business guy. I'm not expecting a ton of production, but I can see one of those maybe 5 for 70 yards. Maybe that touchdown comes along. That'd be awesome, but I'm probably not going to be banking on that. Just kind of that wide receiver 3 maybe role that you're going to be looking at because I actually think Eagles-Bears could be kind of a heavy passing attack game and go a little bit back and forth.
Agreed. As far as your defense suggestion here, the Ravens versus the Browns. Obviously, the Browns lose RG3, which, depending on your opinion, might be a good or bad thing. So this Ravens defense, and this was kind of my theory heading into the year, we don't really know what they are. We don't know, this 2015 version of their entire team was not indicative of anything. They could still be bad, but they were bad because of injuries last year. They have C.J. Mosley, who's literally one of the best defensive players in the entire league. I love Timmy Jernigan up front. They have some pretty talented players in that secondary, though. They have been underperforming. Man, I think they actually might be good. Like, we looked at that matchup with the Bills, and the Bills were awful, obviously. But maybe the Ravens' defense is just good,
So I think that's pretty spot on. It's obviously last year they were very bad, but because of injuries, are they going to be a top 10 defense? No, but they're still going to be that 12 to 15th ranked defense, maybe at kind of their ceiling this year. And I like him this week. And obviously you mentioned it could be a good thing that Josh McCown does come back for Cleveland because he did flash some upside there in Cleveland last year. But overall, I'm gonna wait till I see it. I'm gonna roll the dice on Baltimore. If you don't have any other streaming options, I do like Washington as well this week. I don't see Dallas putting up a ton of production. A touchdown too, maybe they maybe chip away with Dan Bailey as we saw against the Giants, but
Mm,
Washington's defense is much better than New York's is in terms of turning the ball over. I can actually see maybe a little bit more of a turnover prone Dak Prescott in this matchup more so than I did last week.
agreed. Certainly agree there. So those are the main options I think we're looking at on the waiver wire this week. As always, if you'll be following us along on Twitter, on the site with more content. So as things pop up, we'll be letting you know. But for now, this is what we're looking at. So thanks for tuning in, and we will check you guys in week 3.